I've had the iPhone 14 Pro now for over 24 hours. Here are my first impressions. Now to start off, let's address the elephant in the room. One of the biggest changes with the iPhone 14 Pro, which is the dynamic island. Now, to be honest, I love the concept, I love the idea, and even the implementation is super, super good. I love how it adapts to the certain apps I'm using, and I even really like a lot of the animations. I also love how you can press and hold on the different things of the dynamic island and either like control your music or have a look at what exactly is going on. But I do have a couple of complaints about the dynamic island. Like, for example, in direct sunlight, the cutout doesn't look great. You can see that it's two different cutouts. It's a pill and a hole for the camera. Another thing I'm not a big fan of with the dynamic island is that it looks like there's a little bit of blank pixels around the cutout, making the cutout a little bit bigger than what it actually is. There also are quite a few inconsistencies across the software, and of course, this will take a while, and it's also up to some app developers to kind of sort out. But for example, when I'm raising the volume of my phone, it shows up like it normally would on iOS 16. But then if I'm controlling the ringer, then it shows up in the dynamic island. So I'm kind of wondering, why doesn't the volume indicator show up in the dynamic island as well? A lot of these will be fixed in future software updates, but it's something that is slightly annoying. Another thing that I find annoying with the dynamic island is, especially when I'm watching YouTube videos that are in 2x1, like for example, my YouTube videos are uploaded in 2x1, MKBHD. A lot of other YouTubers are uploading in 2x1 now, and already the notch on the 13 lineup cut into the content a little bit. But now the dynamic island also does that, and it looks like it's deeper in the display, which means it will cut off more content than it did before. Now, of course, this is probably just a YouTube issue, but it definitely is an issue. Now, don't get me wrong, the dynamic island is a great piece of software or hardware, whatever you want to call it. I think it's really cool how Apple took this thing that could be a burden but extended it and made it better. I wonder why they didn't do this with the notch, because I think with the notch, it would have worked just as well. Moving on to the display, I think this display is by far the best display I have ever used in any smartphone ever. I think it looks really, really good. It even gets super, super bright, which is something that I definitely noticed, which is great for use in direct sunlight. Of course, I haven't tested it that much outside, but I'm sure it's definitely going to be a lot better than my previous 13 mini. Another thing I absolutely love about this phone is the always on display. I absolutely love how Apple implemented this. Of course, we still have to see how exactly it's going to impact the battery life. So far, so good for me. But I absolutely love how Apple took this different approach with the always on display, where the screen dims and you still have the wallpaper there and you have all of your information. You even have the widgets. I think it's super creative, and I've tried a few of the Android ones. I've tried the Samsung always on display, I've tried Google's, I've tried OnePlus's. The always on display on the iPhone, like, yes, it's taking years for Apple to implement it, but they implemented it well. So the cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro are improved. Like, we've got a new main sensor that shoots 48 megapixels. We have a new and improved ultra wide sensor, which lets in more light. Photos just look a bit better with it. It's great for macro mode. We also get some new and some improved video features. Like, we now have action mode, which has been on some Android phones for years. It is cropped in at 2.7K though, so you can't shoot 4K, but that's understandable because it's cropping into the sensor and it's doing all the stabilization digitally. I'm still going to use a gimbal for a lot of my shots, but we also have 4K cinematic mode now. You can shoot in both 30 frames a second and 24 frames a second for those 24 frames a second lovers, whatever. This clip right now is actually being shot on the iPhone 14 Pro using the rear facing camera. This is 4K, 30 frames a second, cinematic mode. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comment section below. I think it looks pretty good. And the front facing camera has also got some improvements. This is what I'm using to record this right now. This also has 4K at 30 frames a second and 24 frames a second for cinematic mode. But we also get things like autofocus on the front facing camera for the first time ever in an iPhone. I mean, all these new camera improvements are great and all, but we still don't have a pro mode within the camera app, which kind of sucks. For those people who like to have that manual control, there's not too much you can do. Throw it into our iOS 17 wish lists, even though they've been in our wish lists for probably 10 years. But that aside, I think the cameras on this phone, I think Apple nailed it. Of course, I'll need to continue doing some more testing, and you'll get my full thoughts in the full review. But so far, I'm impressed. I'm happy with it. Overall, this phone runs really, really well. I've not really experienced many glitches or bugs with it yet. It runs super smooth. iOS 16 is really good on it as well. I haven't really had that much of a chance to test out the battery life on this phone. I've had it off the charger for about 8 hours now, and I'm at 46%, and I've used this to take photos and videos outside as well. And I'll update you guys on the battery life situation over the next few days. I'll update you guys on Twitter, so make sure to follow me over there. And overall, I just love this phone. It's fantastic. My opinion may change in the next few days as I keep testing, but I highly doubt that because this phone it's great. Now, I know a lot of you out there won't be buying the iPhone 14 Pro, but you're probably going to be updating to iOS 16 if you haven't already. And I actually made a video with over 25 hidden features within iOS 16 that you should definitely check out. So make sure you go watch that video. Oh, before you click the video, for you Americans out there, guess what my phone has? It has a SIM card tray. I know a lot of you have had issues with eSIM. Just come over to the UK, spend a little bit more on the 14 Pro, and you get a SIM card tray.